Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and welcome back to the Friendship Quilt Along. So today I want to get this block on my long arm. This is our first block we're going to quilt together on the long arm, and this has created just a little bit of confusion how we're quilting all of our blocks separately. So I want to show you how I'm going to load it onto the frame and be able to quilt one block at a time. So let's get going, loading this on the frame so it's ready to go. So the first step is to pin your backing fabric in place, and I've already pinned to my top rail. This is the leader cloth that runs across the back of my frame, and now I'm going to roll it up. Just make sure that it goes on nice and smooth. And just a big tip that I think is really, really important. It's a small thing, but I think it is really important. And that is to make sure all of your pins are pointing in the same direction and basically away from your dominant hand. So I am left-handed, so I'm inserting the pins left to right so that all the points are on the right-hand side. And the reason I'm doing that is so that as I go to take them out, I can remove the pins by grabbing from the left, pulling them out like that, all the way down the line, and I'm less likely to get stuck by them. And you want to generally work from the center to the outer edges, so that way you're sure that the backing fabric is going on the leader cloth nice and even. So down here on the other end, I am pinning to the leader cloth on this front top rail. And that's my favorite way to pin on a piece of backing fabric like this. This is pretty much how I load the long arm, no matter what I'm quilting. Okay, let me move my block and batting and roll this up. So you can hear my ratchets. I've got my ratchet closed down so that as I tighten this up, it's going to roll it back the other way. And I will say, if you are using a very light backing fabric or you are using a very light background color on your block, make sure to take the time to lint roll this off and remove any stray threads. If you're working with lighter fabrics, obviously all of those things can show through really easily, and you want to be really careful about that. I'm using this bright orange and black batting, so clearly that's not so much of an issue for me. Okay, now I'm going to close the other clamp and tighten that up, and I want to make sure that when I roll the machine back, I can stitch across where I have it. You can see these blocks are so big, I'm not going to be able to quilt the whole thing in one pass. I'm going to have to advance the block probably twice through the machine in order to quilt all of it. So now I'm going to spread out my batting. And just like in the other video on basting, you want to take a look at it. There's two sides to batting, the side that the needles went down into, and then there's the side that kind of looks like a pilly sweater where the needles came out and kind of pushed the batting together. Well, from what I have learned and what I usually do, I usually put it where the needle punch side is going to be face up. And the idea is that whatever side the needle's punched, you should be punching that same side with the needle on your machine. However, I gotta say, it was 10 years before I learned anything about the right and wrong side of batting, and not all battings have a very obvious right or wrong side, so please don't worry about it if it's something that you're not noticing or can't really tell the difference. That's a-okay. Okay, so that's as much smoothing as I need to do. I've got the backing fabric here, and it's not super tight. It's just a little bit bouncy, but that's about it. I'm going to smooth that out, and then I just center up the quilt top on top, just like so. And in fact, actually, we want to do a line of stitching before we get the quilt top in place. So I'm going to move the machine in place, and I'm going to use my channel locks. And what I want to do is I basically just want to stitch a straight line right across this batting. It's going to give me a nice straight square line that I can use to line up my block. So I'm going to needle up, needle down in order to bring my thread up to the surface. And this is going to get cut off. This is going to be off the edge of the block. So it'll either be covered up by binding or it will be cut off in the trimming process. So I've got my line of stitching started, and I'm going to close my channel locks. This is a lock on the machine that makes it go straight across. I can't push it forward and back right now. I can only go straight across in a nice straight line. So I just smooth it out as I go. And this is the time to check in on your machine, you know, maybe take a minute to oil it. And it's a really good thing to always brush out your long arm before any project. So maybe as you're doing your basting, also stop, brush out your machine, give it a little oil, check in on your thread, you know, wind some bobbins, all that good stuff. All right, now I'm going to top the quilt with the block, and I'm just going to line up that edge with that line I just stitched through the batting. So I'm lining up and trying to make that nice and straight. I'm going to stitch across one more time just so that way you can really see this. So I'm just smoothing this block out and making sure the edge is right in line with that line I just stitched. And then I'm going to just kind of leave it a little puddled up here because right now the only thing holding this in place is it just being laid up and kind of sticking slightly to the batting. It's not really locked in place in any significant way. So now I'm going to shift the machine so that I am stitching about 1/8 of an inch from the quilt edge. So I'm basically going to do another line of stitching parallel to the first. So here we go. And I am keeping a really close eye on the block, making sure that I stay right along that edge. And I know this is black on black, so it's a little hard to see, but I love those channel locks because they really help you stitch perfectly straight line all the way down. If you start noticing a ripple in your block, be careful about that. Just smooth it out with your hand. Just work your way down. If the machine beeps at you, that means that you're going a little too fast. Just slow down, take it easy, and there we go. So now the block is nice and secured to the quilt. And again, that stitching is going to get covered up or cut off, most likely cut off whenever we go to finish our blocks and bind them together. So now I'm just going to smooth this out, and you can see I'm going to have maybe about that much of the block that I can quilt in one pass. So I need to think about that whenever I'm planning my quilting design. But that is how I'm going to load it up. Now this is optional and extra. I don't think it's absolutely 100% necessary. This is really sticking nicely to the frame. If you wanted to, you could take your block and pin it to the bottom leader cloth down here. This is on the second rail on the front. You could do that. I personally like these quilt clips. You just press it in place and then give it a little rotate, just like so. That adds a nice bit of tension to the block and holds it securely. So that's it. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you learned a lot and you're excited about getting your blocks on your long arm and ready to quilt. I'm really excited about this because I've never shared a quilt along where we're doing quilting both on a home machine and on a long arm. And if you are quilting along with me and are looking for the home sewing machine video, please come and find it at leahday.com/friendship. That's where I'm linking up all of the videos so you can find them all in one place, and you can also find the block patterns there as well. So come and check it out at leahday.com/friendship. Until next time, let's go quilt.